What mathematical knowledge did Bill Gates have to create Windows? Bill's claim to fame is writing a basic interpreter with Paul Allen for the Altair 8800. It was small enough to leave enough room for the program storage and variables. He and Allen relied on Monte Davidoff for the floating point code. This was written in 8080 assembly. As you can see, a simple computer needed a simple BASIC, and it was a very simple BASIC that lacked many features that were available in an 8K version. This led him to working with IBM and managing to sell them an operating system he didn't yet own, but purchased for nearly nothing compared to the contract it was worth. Very smart. That led to Microsoft's rise. Recall he doesn't have a degree other than honorary degrees. Which just goes to show that some people, those that are really good, don't need degrees anyway. However, he was okay at computers, but in those early days so few people knew anything about computers that even being decent in computers was all it took. He was very good at business and seeing the future of things and making sure that future contained his company. He controlled a monopoly even longer than IBM, and even after it was declared a monopoly, very little was done about it. This was his genius, exploitation of others. As for Windows, he didn't write it. He had real programmers that did. Apple got to tour Xerox Palo Alto where they saw how to make a graphical interface. Apple then contracted with Microsoft to help them write it, and Microsoft got to learn all about it from Apple. So Apple stole it from Xerox and Microsoft from Apple. Microsoft, despite an agreement with Apple, managed to get to market first on open hardware, and that made all the difference. Down with Apple, up with Microsoft, all due to open hardware which makes cheaper prices. Sounds harsh, but Bill is brilliant in business as long as you only care about making money, which is what every business does, though some choose to do it as cleanly as they can and others don't. Corporations serve their stockholders, not their customers or the general public. He knew how to steal the idea from Xerox PARC. First, full disclosure. I am a software developer from the same area of the US that Bill Gates grew up in. My sister knows, or at least knew, Bill's father. My sister is a judge in the same county in Washington state that Bill's father practiced in, is why she knows Bill's father. As a software engineer, I worked a short contract for Microsoft. I have absolutely nothing against Microsoft nor Bill Gates. And I especially have nothing against the late Paul Allen, who seemed to have more engineering acumen than Bill Gates. I worked the short contract for Microsoft when my mother was terminally ill with multiple myeloma. This allowed me to be out there at that time. I am grateful for that. I have never met Bill Gates nor Paul Allen, and thus I do not know them personally. I took a computer science course taught by a man who worked at Xerox PARC and directly ran a business with Paul Allen in the Palo Alto, California area. That is the most I can think of for full disclosure. Now to elaborate. The gentleman who I took the course from at Stanford was brutally honest despite owning interval research with Paul Allen in that Microsoft and Apple both stole the idea of Windows-like operating systems from Xerox PARC. Remember, he worked for Xerox PARC and with Paul Allen later. He flew to Bill Gates' wedding in the greater Seattle area with Steve Jobs. He should know. This is also laid out in the TV movie, The Pirates of Silicon Valley. So, this is not an unknown fact. But it is a fact. I do say it above a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it is in fact sort of how the two popular operating systems and their derivatives came into being. In software development, much of the development is carried out by a team, so it wasn't just Bill Gates. In software coding and programming, there is some mathematics used for things like performance enhancements, etc. It is somewhat limited math, but that is probably the kind of things they used to create all of these systems. Windows is not an operating system which anybody could single-handedly create. Towards the end of the 80s, Microsoft was jointly developing a new operating system with IBM, called OS/2. When that was less than the runaway success hoped for, Microsoft pulled out, and used a lot of the technology from OS/2 to create Windows NT.